part of your job over the next few weeks is to try and get a 4 on me for my teaching of leadership, because there's plenty of theory online on Moodle that I've opened up, and I'm going to open up some extra weeks so you can get in front of me and start going, okay, leadership. I know I need to add some leadership theory. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, styles. Oh, skills. Oh, I don't know, management versus leadership. And we're going to talk about management versus leadership in the next week or two. But we'll also talk about it as command versus leadership, because it's very much that same concept. Last semester, we sort of finished out in a rush towards the issue of tactical engagement and strategic effect. So I'm very, very quickly going to do a review of that last little bit, and then we are going to move forward with the rest of this, this discussion. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions, any thoughts, anything that they want to bring up, discuss, besides the Ukraine and Russia, which is a topic? But
I wanted to ask a couple of questions about my proposal.
okay.
I wanted to just clarify some things, but I don't know, do we want to do it now or later?
Is it just like for your proposal, or is it a general question about proposals? All right, if it's just for you, then we can do it after class for a moment or two without a problem. Yeah.
Is it like, okay, are we going to have class every single day for the rest of the semester?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. If we get this done quickly and near the end I find that we have space and we don't need to do that, then maybe I'll go, okay, look, we're taking a break. You have 2 weeks, 3 weeks until your presentation of your projects. And then I can say, okay, given that, does anyone want to have independent meetings about your papers, or does anyone want to do, one of the things that's really important to me is if we have time, and just in general, if you guys get stuck on your paper as you're starting to work on your paper and you go, wait a second, I want to start getting advice, or I want some advice on the paper, I may, instead of having a private meeting with you, call part of my class meeting to be a proposal discussion, where you bring it up, you get to switch places with me, I get to sit over there, you get to stand up over here and say, here's my proposal, here's the thinking, what I'm thinking, here's how I'm thinking about using it. Does anyone see any issues with this, or what am I missing? And like, you can definitely use your student body and me as sounding boards to try and figure out what you could do better. If you make that request, if you make a request to me for a meeting, I may counter request with that. As in, you don't have to accept that as a thing to do, but I may counter request with that. Thoughts, questions, or anything else before we continue? No. Okay. I don't know. It will depend on how fast we get through this.
I'm so nervous.
What are you nervous about?
Having 4 seminar papers at one time is a lot.
Yeah, it is. But you'll do it. You'll be fine. I've done it. You can do it. You'll be fine. It's all about time management. And what I will tell you is that near the end of the semester, I steal from this course to give you what's called life after school lessons for at least one class, where we're going to talk about things like time management, and we're going to try to talk about things like financial management, and we're going to talk about things like setting personal goals. Because basically everything you've learned in this class, leadership and strategy, is not just business and military and politics and government, and it's very personal. You can use it for yourself, for your own benefit, to improve how you engage in your life. Okay? Sweet. Tactical engagement. We spoke about this last semester. And I said tactical engagement requires us to look at the balance that sort of takes place between those things that we can control and the things that we have to leave to chance, or that we don't, that are out of our control, where risk abides. Like, this is where risk loves to play. So when we want to move forward with something, we've got objectives. We've set, like, we know our vision. We've set vision. We know our strategy, our general strategy is. We've given ourselves a concept of where we're moving forward, how we're moving forward, what we're going to do with this whole thing. And we say, okay, now we've broken that down into clear objectives. We've resourced those objectives. We've put doctrine to those objectives. We know how the balance is playing out in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed, etc. Now we're getting into the actual movement. We are trying to maneuver in the world around us and get things done and hit specific goals that are going to make these objectives real. How do I do that? Well, I have to balance between the things that I can control and the things that are a little bit outside of my control. So things that I can control are things like discipline. How disciplined am I at getting things done? Am I the person who sort of is like, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own, or am I the kind of person who goes, you know what? Focus, get this thing done, and we'll move on, right? Or not just me, but my team. right? How hyper-focused are we on this specific thing that we're working on versus where we need to go from here, right? It's about cooperation. Is this something I'm doing on my own? In which case, I don't need a lot of cooperation except for my own brain and my own body. But is it something that I need cooperation for in terms of other people, allies who are not even on my team, another team that needs to also maneuver in the same, like when you're moving in the military, right? And you're trying to take over a street, and it's more than one team working. You've got several teams working. You'll have one team move forward, and then they're going to provide cover for another team that has to move beyond that team. How do you do that? It requires succinct command, communication, and cooperation, right? It requires it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You know what happens? People shoot each other. It's not a good thing, right? So, hello. Pleasure that you can join us. I'm so glad that you came back healthy. I'm so glad that you came back healthy. And the last thing is, what can I orchestrate? What am I actually capable of doing? What am I capable of maneuvering into and doing in this world? Because if I can't maneuver into this, if I can't get this thing done, if I can't orchestrate it, I can't command events. I'm in deep doo-doo, right? Against this, we get environment, the environment within which we're working, which very often is not in our control. Whether it's the actual physical weather, environment, those sorts of things, right? Which, for instance, is impacting Russia's movement in the Ukraine. It's part of the reason why they're using main streets and not going over rough terrain, because the rough terrain is muddy and bogging them down, right? So you've got environment. You've got where opportunity is, which is not, very often opportunity is not based on my maneuver. It's based on something that the opponent or the other or whoever sort of created for me. Oh, look, there's a chink in the armor. Oh, there's a place here that they didn't attack. Oh, there's something here that they didn't defend. Oh, there's something here that allows me to, but I have to see that opportunity and be able to engage it, because if I don't see that opportunity, I can't engage it, and then I'm going to have problems. And the last one is, when it comes to chance, is how decisive can I be in making that decision? That's based on doctrine. How risk-averse am I? If I'm super risk-averse, then my ability to be decisive is going to be limited, right? If I'm always worried that, well, what if I make a mistake, or what if this doesn't go well, or what if this is too risky, then you go, oh well, you're going to miss that opportunity to be able to engage properly and create tactical advantage. Yes?
For example, I think a good example of this, of decisiveness, is the way the Europe has reacted to Ukraine invasion. For example, if their doctrine allows them to just send 1 billion of troops and risk it.
Right away. Yeah.
That's different.
It would have totally changed how they had engaged chance. They would have seen risk differently. But they are risk averse when it comes to nuclear war. And the fact is that had they preempted this and simply said, oh, you're building up on the border, no problem. We are now considering Ukraine as part of NATO, even though they haven't signed. That simple act, if NATO had come up and said, we are in discussions, as far as we're concerned, these discussions constitute, until we get to a formal agreement, these constitute the Ukraine's part of the NATO accords. We are now moving troops in to protect them because they are in the process of signing these accords with us. Should those fail, we will remove our troops. Should those fail, then we will remove our troops. Would have totally changed the dynamic of the discussion. But they weren't that decisive. They dragged their feet. They let things happen. They let a buildup occur. They were worried. They were very risk averse. So it definitely made them look at this and go, that's a chance I'm not willing to take, which is why we call it chance, because chance has both the sides of opportunity and risk within it. Does that make sense? It's a statistical statement, but it's more than a statistical statement, right? And what happens is, as we try and do this, what we do is we consolidate our effort. As we maneuver, whether it's different teams maneuvering, whether it's a group maneuvering together, whether it's people doing different tasks towards a specific, but all those are consolidated effort towards a specific goal, something that we want to accomplish. We want to take this street. We want to build this part of the app. We want to finish this part of our getting ready for Shabbat. Whatever it is, those things happen because of a consolidated effort, exploitation of opportunity, and our ability to exploit the abilities that we have, the tasks and skills that we're capable of, the things we're capable of getting done. And last but not least, in pursuit of the goal, we will continue to move forward as long as we possibly can, right? So that's how we define and look at tactical advantage. We can analyze it. We can actually look, how good were they in the pursuit of tactical advantage? Did they maneuver effectively? Did they see opportunities and engage them? Did they create a consolidated effort towards a specific goal system? If they didn't, what do we do with that? right? You can look at it retroactively, and you can use it as a way to think about future goals. How capable are we going to be of consolidating effort? How risk averse do we want to be in this next, stage, phase of this engagement? Whatever the engagement is, doesn't matter. Like any engagement, how risk averse, how opportunistic, how much chance am I willing to take? What am I going to be able to, what do I know I'm going to be able to command and control here? Okay? Make sense? Make sense? Make sense? Make sense? Cool. All right, so then we talked about goals and how to, goals are, you undertake specific tasks, the tasks pursue key results, decision making is limited, et cetera, right? And it's limited by the objective and things like that. And we looked at things like lead measure, the variables that will influence events, and lag measure, our ability to say, well, success, not success, the thing that defines for us that middle ground of, is it measurable? Is it not measurable? Is it a feeling of success? Or is it we succeeded because we have a $100 million in the bank, right? Because that's what we're looking at, right? And then we talked about things like different types of goals, SMART goals versus FAST goals, okay? This is on the PowerPoint. You can read it, and if you want more about it, look it up. And then we talked about something called strategic effect, and that's the impact of performance over the course of events over time, okay? This is about something that takes place over time. It's about whether or not we are able to get from where we are to where we wanted to be. Right? Were we capable of moving forward so that goals were attained? Were we able to create the composite measure of all the tactical goals so that objectives were hit? Did those objectives create the world we wanted to see? And it's a question of net strategic performance. It's contending parties. It's about perspectives. So for instance, when you look at, for instance, the combat between Israel and Hamas, right? And Hamas goes, we won. And Israel goes, we won. And now my question is, well, who won? That depends. And what we can look at, for instance, is third parties, right? We can look at how third parties might influence that concept. Like, well, who thinks about this? If you look back, not to the last interaction between Israel and Gaza, but several years ago, there was like a major combat event, and Hamas declared victory, and Israel declared victory, and the rest of the world said Hamas had won the event, won the engagement. And you go, well, then who really won? Is it the number of people dead? Is it the number of people or is it based on this third party's perspective on victory and having achieved goals and objectives? Okay? So when we look at all of this, right, the different theaters can mean you have multiple points where like you go, okay, I won here, but I lost there. Like I won on the battlefield, but I lost in the international forum's perspective on who we are as individuals, good or bad. Composite effect. Does that make sense? It's about all of this put together. Which leads us to a question of leadership. It leads us to the question of leadership. It says, okay, if all of this is true, then what's the purpose of leadership? It's somehow to get people to come together to do something, right? It's somehow to take us and create that vision and get other people to see that vision and ascribe to it and get them to move towards it. So leadership, here's a question. Can you define leadership for me? Jaegers, define leadership from your perspective.
My perspective, leadership is the ability of a person to set certain goals and then make sure that other people act in a way that those goals are accomplished.
Okay, what's leadership? Come on.
The ability of someone to take control of a situation to try to do a certain outcome.
Okay, create a certain outcome. Okay, great. What's leadership?
What do you think that in different situations would be defined differently?
Okay.
I mean, there's a leader in classroom. Like a teacher might lead a class, right? So that role, right, would be different than like a commander who's like the leader of a troop in war.
Okay.
Their jobs would be different.
What's different about them?
What you need to do to lead.
The skills that you have to bring to the table?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that's different about them? Let me refine that. The skills and perhaps the style of leadership, the way you interact with your
Yeah.
followers, right? Okay. Besides those two, is there any functional difference between the two of them?
I guess no.
No? Okay. Leadership, what is it? Is it definable? First of all, is it definable? Do you think it's definable?
It's vague.
Okay, vague, good.
For sure.
All right.
It's subjective, but probably leadership is a quality.
Okay, quality.
Certain people might assess in certain scenarios or situations
Mm-hmm.
where they lead the way to whoever is behind them, pretty much.
Okay. Behind or below?
Or below them.
Behind or below?
Yeah.
You're saying either people who are back there and I'm going this way and follow me, or it's you guys,
Correct.
we're going that way.
It could be negative leadership. It doesn't have to
100%.
be,
Okay, cool.
leadership.
What's leadership?
I would say that is the skill to perceive the other.
The skill to
Perceive the other.
proceed,
Perceive.
perceive the other. So you're saying leadership is about being able to see somebody else.
To see and to see someone's skills that are going to be profitable or good to my situation, to my
Okay, let me refine it a little bit. You're saying it's not just about perceiving it's the other, it's about perceiving how I might utilize another person's abilities to my benefit. Yeah? Okay, cool.
Well, another thing is inspiration. Leaders are supposed to be inspirational.
Okay, leaders are supposed to be inspirational. Very cool. All right, so, that's not even supposed to exist right now. That's not supposed to exist either. How did that do that? Okay, so here's the next question. What does it mean to be a leader then?
Take responsibility.
To take responsibility, what else? What does it mean to be a leader?
Well, to organize other people to do stuff.
To organize other people? What else?
To take charge.
To take charge? What does it mean to be a leader? Not leadership, but what does it mean to be a leader?
Have followers.
Hmm? To be a role model?
To lead.
Okay, but you can't use the term to define the term. That doesn't work. Try again. What,
Have followers.
to have followers. What does it mean to lead? I mean,
Make people follow you.
okay, to make people follow you. What is a leader?
I'm trying to think without the word lead.
That's part of the problem.
Someone who is in chief. You know,
In chief, what do you mean?
like a chief, a boss. You know.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, is a boss, a manager, necessarily a leader? Necessarily a leader?
If they're bad at their roles.
So,
You can just have a manager instead of a leader.
do you need to have followers to be a leader?
You know what?
Do you need to have followers to be a leader?
No, but you definitely need respect or authority to be a leader.
Who are you leading if you don't have followers?
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I guess the term
Okay.
followers also has to be more.
Okay, so let's be really, okay, what is the difference between being a leader and being a leader in the field? What did I just do? I changed these two different, when you talk about leader, what are you really talking about very often? Leadership, right? When people say, oh, he's a leader, what are they saying? He's got leader, because there's something about him that makes people want to follow, right? There's something about him that people want to follow. But when you talk about a leader in the field, what are they talking about?
Yeah, but that also has like followers.
Maybe, not necessarily. Can you be a leader in the field without followers?
Yes.
Okay, what does it mean leader in the field?
Okay.
Yeah, people are still
Okay.
following your
My grasp of
research.
English is fully.
Okay, no, okay, so let me define it for you. A leader in the field could be the person who is most in, like the organization that is the most ingenuitive and has created a totally new something and something. And like when Apple came out with the iPod and Apple came out with the iPhone, they were acting as leaders in the field. Did they have followers? I mean, I'm not talking about the people who like what they create, but within the field of technological advancement, were they leaders? And did they have
Yes.
they were the first. Did they have followers?
People follow their trend.
Well,
Yeah, I feel like they
Right.
have
But does that mean that they were engaging in leadership?
not in the traditional sense.
Why not? I mean, we haven't even defined leadership yet, but why not? No, good. This is good. Go.
I think
So there's a difference between being copied, as a leader in the field might be, right, and leadership. Is that what you're saying?
Could you say that one more time?
Sure. There is a difference between being a leader in the field and being copied by others, as in, oh, they did it first, we need to do that too.
Right, one of them, I would say that one of them is you're a leader because you want to be.
Because you want what?
You want to be in charge
Of,
a group.
so let's like,
Followers?
of followers of some kind, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
One is, I want to be a leader in terms of I want to be in charge of followers.
Right,
And then the other one is,
I am a leader because I'm great and doing what other people are not doing, but I don't really want anyone to copy.
but I would prefer if people don't copy me, or if they do copy me, then they're not going to do it as well as I did it.
Right, or I don't want them to do it.
As well as I did it.
I want to stay.
I want to stay a leader in the field, right?
Right.
Okay, what?
If you're a leader in a field, fine, okay. If you're doing amazing things like Apple, people are even if you don't want people to copy you, followers are still like other people, like I don't know, PC or other technological companies. They're still following you. So they're still looking at your research and looking at where you're going.
Yeah, but are they followers or are they mimickers? Let's differentiate, right? A follower.
Have a following.
Okay, Apple definitely has a following, and those are the people who like stand in line for hours and days in order to get the new thing that Apple's putting out when Apple does that. Apple hasn't done that in a while, if we want to be really honest. But like, yes, I agree with you. They do have a following. The question is that this is the differentiation between Apple and its relationship to its followers.
They're not being an active leader, though, really,
To whom?
to their followers.
Yeah, they are setting trends and everything.
They're setting trends, they're setting goals, they're saying, hey, if you want to be innovative like us, follow us, do what we do, join us. But it, no, but they sort of do. I mean, if you think about like the rules that they set, the moment you buy an iPhone or a Mac, how well does that work with an Android phone versus with an iPhone?
My Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an iPhone.
Why? Because it's you're within their world, right? So they do kind of control and command how not absolutely, but within the realms of, okay. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? So yes, we can look at people underneath and say, okay, look, they do have followers, but when we're talking about their relationship with other companies, we talk about them as a leader in the field. We're very often discussing them not in terms of leadership, but simply in their capacity to be innovative. Their capacity to be one step ahead of their competitors.
Would you say the same true if like a medical professional is the leader in a field?
Yeah.
Because
So
they actually have like real followers like that, like other doctors that align with, like, let's say they're like an innovative.
let's say there's an innovative technology that somebody develops, and this guy says, this doctor says this works. We're going to use this, and everybody starts following.
So now they have in both types of leadership. Meaning they
Well,
are-
they're doing both leadership and they're acting as a leader in the field.
yeah.
Okay, but are those things necessarily
Or
like? Yeah, do they have to, like, is it one or the other? Can you be both?
no, I think
You can be both, right? Okay, fine. Pour some more tea because my throat is not happy today, people. Bear with me. There we go. What?
I would love tea after class. I'm gonna grab a tea.
I have a cup. Would you like some tea? You sure? Okay. It's never too warm for tea.
I drink tea like 3 cups a day, so I get that.
It's never too warm for tea. Okay, so one of the things we're going to have to talk about when we talk about individuals, but also companies, also groups, okay, is what does it mean to have leadership qualities or traits? Do you have to have them? Do you have to have these in order to be a leader and engage in leadership? Can you have them and not be a leader? Is that possible?
I should say that yes, you have to have certain qualities to be a leader, but if you have those qualities, you do not have to be. You might choose not to use them.
Right, okay. So then we ask questions like, okay, what's the relationship involved? Like, how's relationship going to play a role here? Because if it's just you and there's nobody else, are you really engaging in leadership? I mean, you might be engaging in personal leadership, You know, I'm leading my hand in this direction. My haste is going that way. And what about common goals? When we talk about someone like Apple, are they creating common goals or are they creating goals for their company? And then other people are going, oh, okay, we accept that as something we have to work towards, but not because we're working with you, but because we're actually working against you. Right? It's the latter. And you go, so they're leaders in the field, but they're not engaging in leadership. They'd really prefer if people left them alone and didn't copy them and just let them win. Maybe.
It's not even that. I mean, even in more traditional leadership, you can tell your followers you can run your own, but in secret you have to do it.
Right, because you may be saying, you know what, in order to get people to engage in this thing, if I tell them what we're really working towards, they're going to be too scared. Like the tactical, if we go back to tactical advantage, right? They're going to look at that and go, They're going to look at that and go, wait a second, chance is too great. I don't want to take the risk. You know, I don't see this as opportunity. So you might be a little bit fuzzy about what you're really working towards in order to minimize the impact of that, right? 100%. It's like the parent who doesn't tell their kids what's like that they're going to get a shot today. You know, we have to go to the doctor, and we don't talk about what's going to actually happen when we're at the doctor because I don't want to deal with the fight that would be involved to get them out the door otherwise, right? Not with my children, though. They don't seem to have a problem with shots. It's amazing. So let's look at a basic definition of leadership. And I'm being very specific here. Leadership. Okay? Northhouse gives this to us. Northhouse says leadership is a process in which an individual influences a group towards a goal. Do you accept this concept, this definition? Think about it for a minute.
Why does it have to be an individual?
Okay. What else? We're gonna comment on everything you comment on. I would like to hear your comments first. So first, why does it have to be an individual? Good question. What else?
Can I ask maybe a stupid question?
There's no such thing in this classroom. Don't say that again, ever.
Well, it says individual and it says group in the same definition.
Well, it says it's a process in which one individual influences a group.
Oh, I didn't know there was.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's this influences that.
Oh,
That makes sense now? Sweet. Not a stupid question at all.
I just wanted to address Chloe's question about the individual. Well, you can treat the company as an individual, so it's one brand, one company, individual.
Okay. Sater, anything else?
So the group could also be an individual.
Yeah, that's not necessarily that's not necessarily.
Interesting. Okay, what else? So we now have the question of, well, why individual and group? Maybe it's individual and individual, or maybe it's group and individual. Maybe there's another way to think about this. Okay, what else? Is there anything else here that raises like a, wait a second?
Leadership has to be a process?
Okay, why? Does it have to be a process?
I thought about it as a quality more.
Okay. Is leadership a quality, or is it something that takes place over time?
Well, it can be both.
Can you have leadership qualities and not engage those qualities in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, I see why he thinks it's a process. You can't be a leader just from waking up in the morning and saying, I'm a leader. You have to establish a relationship with the people you're trying to lead so that, you can actually effectively execute leadership.
Okay.
In that sense, it is a process, but it also requires of certain traits and certain.
Do you have to have specific traits to be a leader?
It would be to your advantage.
It might be to your advantage. That I'm not even going to debate that statement. You're correct. But you have to have them.
I should say yes.
You absolutely have to have traits certain traits to be a leader?
Well, certain traits, yes.
They will need to develop it.
Well, yeah, but
Okay, no. Okay. Yes, I understand the statement. You might say someone's not born with them. You're saying, let's forget about a certain theory called the great man theory, which says you're born with a certain thing, and if you have it, then great, and if you don't. You're saying, I don't accept that. I agree that okay, fine. No problem. But do you have to have traits
Yeah.
in order to be a leader?
Oh, no.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Do you need to have leadership qualities to be a leader?
By traits, I mean certain methods. So
so that let's differentiate between traits and styles, just so that we have it. You have traits. These are, things that you have. And then there's styles, choosing how to engage. Okay?
Stalin was a great leader in terms of fear. Okay.
Oh, wait. Remember last semester when we spoke about the influence matrix and we said there's influence and then there's persuasion and then there's manipulation and then there's coercion? This one says influence.
No, not influence.
Okay. What might you be able to say? I mean, when he says influence, do you think he means influence in that matrix, or is he talking about the entire thing of influence that we just, he's talking about everything, right? Okay, so it's really important for us to recognize that here, okay? Last but not least, who works towards goals in our hierarchy sense? Now, we're talking within the framework of this classroom, right? I gave you a very specific understanding about how hierarchies focus. Who focuses on goals in the hierarchy? What level? Does the strategic level work on goals? Does the operative level work on goals? Does the tactical level work on goals? There's a focus here. No, you're good. There's a focus. There's definitely a focus.
Wouldn't the leader, like, the word that I'm going to use is not, I'm going to say choose, but I want a better word. Choose the goals or make, like, the objective and then
Okay, wait, you bring in a different word. Hold on. Goals and objectives. What's bigger? For our class. And I'm saying for our class because it'll depend on where you're at. Where your objectives are bigger.
Right, and then I'm like forgetting how to speak. The group or the other people that you mentioned that I forgot what you said is the one that like implements, meaning the goals.
Okay, so if we take this, if we read this with the perspective that we have in this classroom of like vision is what strategy creates, right? Strategy defines and delineates vision, and then the operative level will then define objectives, and then the tactical level will engage goals. This definition points us to what? Tactical leadership. Okay? Now, we have to understand something about this. He's not talking tactical leadership. Okay? Why? Because he doesn't use the same terminology we're using. When he says goals, he means everything from vision, objectives to goals, and anything in between. Right? Does it make sense what I just said? Okay. So here's where things get kind of interesting. If we want to look at perspectives on leadership, there are really two major ways we can do it. One is to look at, I'm sorry that this is dark, I will try and make it better. One is to look at the traits of the leader, right? Their height, their intelligence. Are they extrovert or are they introverted? How fluent are they in their ability to communicate, in their language skills? Do they have any other traits? What's their psychology? What's their look at sociology? What was their upbringing? There's certain things, certain traits that you can look at. But those traits, when you use those as the defining characteristic of leadership, or in your analysis of leadership, or in your ability to define who would be a good leader, you are looking at it from a top-down process. Only top-down. What are you missing? Do you need me to go back? Okay, there are perspectives on leadership. There are two major views. One is the trait view, and the other is the process view.
What would you mean by the
He called qualities. He called for a qualities view of leadership, right? What view is that? You have certain qualities. What are those?
That's not trait. That's not the trait.
That's this.
No, that's a quality.
Okay. Do you have certain qualities? There are certain things that you have,
Right.
and if you have them, then you can be a good leader.
And what would a process?
This is the process. Hold on. I haven't got there yet. We'll get there in a sec. Okay. This is the trait version, which is basically, if we want to use a different word, we can use the term qualities, right? But this one is going to be only this way down. Because it's whatever qualities the leader has, whatever traits the leader has, it doesn't take into account the followers. It doesn't take into account the relationship, the two-directional version of nature of the relationship. The process version, on the other hand, says from here down, but there's also from down here to how do I perceive the leader? Because it's a relationship. It's two-way street. It's not just me down. It's me down, but you have to want to follow. Right? So here we might look at things like empathy, or their ability to communicate well, or decision making, or their ability to coach, and the skills and the styles that they bring to bear in order to have a good relationship with their followers so that the followers will want to follow. Yeah.
Can you just read both of the...
Yes, I can read the things on the inside.
Sorry.
It's no problem. It says height, intelligence, extrovert or extroversion, which is introversion, extroversion. Fluency, as in within like a business, how fluent are you with the nature of the language of the team that you're working with, right? There's other traits, and there's a long list. In Northhouse, he's got a list of traits. Psychology, socialization, how you were raised, things like that. Those are all about the leader, right? They're all about who the leader is and what the leader brings to the table, okay? The other one, the process version, or the process scenario, says, wait a second, we're really talking about things like, well, how empathetic is the leader? How good is he at communication? And how good a listener is he, right? Communication has both the how good am I at talking, but also how good am I at engaging my ears, right? How good is he at making decisions? How open is he to hearing other options in his decision making, right? Coaching, skills, styles, and trust, okay? Those are all about process. Those are not about this down, it's about all of us together, okay? So, if we think about it, leadership as process allows us to examine things that leadership as quality or leadership as trait doesn't give us, okay? It's, without looking at a process, we can't look at the context of the relationship. We can only examine the people involved. I can look at the leader, and I can look at the followers, and I can look at, well, here's who they are, and here's who they are. Here's their psychology and their history and their personality and maybe certain traits or qualities that they have, but I cannot in any way, shape, or form look at the relationship. I don't have context within which to do so. And it doesn't mean that traits aren't important, but traits, well, they're about the leader, not about leadership, right? You can have leadership qualities or traits, but is that leadership or is that simply things about the leader? Okay?
I mean, leadership as a trait is, I wouldn't say that it's not a valid approach, but it's just, in my opinion, half of the approach.
When you wish to learn to be a leader, you need to learn leadership traits and skills and qualities if you don't have them naturally, if they're learnable, and not all of them are. But if you only focus on those, you will fail in leadership. Did that make sense what I just said?
Okay, I'm very interested on your opinion about this. I applied to a job and I had to take a personality test where it's like, oh, if the manager does this, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. I spent like 45 minutes doing this. And then they said your traits are not what we're looking for in a company. Like, we cannot move forward with the application. So I was wondering, like, that if you think that hinders the company by only having one set of people and one certain amount of traits, or if they're looking for a specific, right?
It depends on what they're looking for. Like, if they're looking for someone who's going to be in a high-risk field, right, and you lack decisiveness, right, and that shows in the amount of time it takes you to do certain questions, they'll go, look, you answered all the questions well, but at the end of the day, you took 45 minutes on something that should have taken you like 20. Even that can be a function of how they're looking at it. It depends on what you were applying to. It depends on what the field was. It depends on what the company was. It depends on what they're doing. It depends on what your position would have been in that. There are times when it can be very very detrimental to a company. Absolutely. It can be a huge detriment to a company that wants everyone to be cookie cutter shaped. Okay? Because if you've got everybody the same, and they're all thinking the same, and they're all doing the same, and they're all, unless you have zero desire for innovation in your company at all, and you simply want people to do exactly the same thing over and over, like a robot, which there are companies that need that, to be really, really clear. But if that's what you want, then great. But if you don't want that, then does it make sense? So yes and no. I hope that's a fair answer. Yeah? Go ahead.
On that definition that we just gave, would that be the same for the two types of like leaders
This thing?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just
It's okay. No, it's okay.
meaning we spoke about like being the leader in the field and then the leader of like a group of people. So meaning the first, the yellow, would be like the leader in a field.
It might be. Yes, you're right. Might be. You're correct.
Because there is no like direct, I know Apple influences and whatever, but there's no like,
There's no process taking place.
yeah, like there might be like focus groups or like things that like Apple does to like engage in their following to know like what trends people want to see, right? But there is no like relationship. I'm not like talking to the head of Apple on the phone being like, hello, my Mac doesn't work, I just got it 5 days ago, you know? Like,
Right. Okay. So yes, hypothetically, if we wanted to do it like this, we could say, okay, this is more about the leader,
right.
and this is more about the process. More about the leader, more about the process.
That's what it is.
But do you understand how that?
Yeah.
Do you see the differentiation?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it absolute? No, it's not absolute. But it's not absolute.
Because Apple doesn't like need the people in order to lead. They need to buy their products, but that's not like
What people do they need in order to be leaders in the field?
competent.
What do they need to be leaders in the field?
Products.
And how do you make your products?
People.
Who are really intelligent, really fluent in whatever programming languages or design or whatever it is that they have to do, or engineering or whatever it is that they have to do, right? So Apple as a company brings together a whole bunch of people who
But
feel
they're all leaders. All of their
They-
employees, like might be-
no, together they create a unit which now leads.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Right.
Like all those brains put together go whoop,
In my
and it's called Apple,
Right.
because that's what we call
I
it.
know to break it up that way, just so that I can understand, would that make sense though, to say that like being a leader in a field, it's more like the trait of leadership and like leading a group would be the process?
You don't have to be a leader in the field to have traits of leadership. That's exactly the point. You can have these traits and not be a leader in the field even. There are people who are tall, dark, and handsome and have all kinds of different traits, come from a good background, socialized, extrovert, fluent in language necessary for and they sit there and twiddle their thumbs. Okay? So it's also a decision to take that role, right? You have to want to take it. But there's a difference between that and leadership. Okay? Right? We want to focus on leadership.
Like the active role in.
The active relationship.
Okay.
That's what I want us to focus on. I'm not saying that having these traits is not important or learning certain skills is not important. We will talk about skills. It's once you've made and to engage in process. Okay? Because when we look at it, it would be very easy for me to say, okay, I want you to, let's say you decide you're going to analyze, Ben Gurion as a leader. Okay? You could just look at Ben Gurion. Just him. Does he fit the general perspectives of traits of leadership? Does he have certain leadership qualities? Does he have this? Does he have that? Did he have good ideas? Answer is yes and no, right? But when you start looking at him in relation to the people that he had following him, that whole process becomes much more in-depth and rich and interesting and engaging, and you learn much more from it. And you become a better leader by learning from that than you do from simply learning from his traits and whatever skills he made. Those skills are important, but how did he use those skills? Who did he use those skills with? Why did he use them then?
Would it be, like, I obviously not asking you to like think off the top of your head, but could you in theory say that about someone like the opposite? Like, this person, they didn't have as many, like, I mean, you could say from his following that he was not a good leader, but his traits would have made him a good leader. You could say probably the opposite about people also.
Yeah, 100%. You would have thought that this person, based on all their traits, would be a phenomenal leader. And then when they get into the relationship, they can't figure out how to deal with these people. They can't get them to follow properly. You've seen that happen.
Right.
I've seen that happen.
Group projects.
Forget group projects. Vladimir Putin in Russia right now is having this problem. He is. Sorry. He has leadership qualities and traits and all kinds of stuff, and he's the great man leader, and yada, yada, and he's got people out in the streets going against what he wants. Does that make him bad leader? Not even going to get involved with that question. But if we look at him, he would seem to be a great leader. If you look at him as an individual, and his traits and his qualities, da, 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 da. But if you look at him in relationship,
No, I was saying the opposite.
I understand. If you look at it from the relationship perspective, you go, wait a second. He has these qualities, but his effectiveness in leadership seems to be somewhat skewed, not so great. You're saying he's got these qualities, but he's not doing it?
No, I'm saying someone that
Doesn't have the qualities.
But then they were put for whatever reason, in a position of leadership, and they did a really great job.
Yeah. We'll talk about it. There's this thing where like people sort of grow into their leadership. They never show they never seem to show it, and then all of a sudden they get put in a position where they don't have a choice. Does anyone want to talk about Zelensky as a great example of that right now?
Yes.
Nobody thought that he was going to be a great leader. They thought he was going to be a mediocre leader. He's a comedian. He's a comedian, okay? And what has emerged is something else entirely. Does that
He also became way more famous than what he ever expected to.
I'm not even going to get involved with like that part of it because that's already like a whole different ballgame.
Right.
Just functionally, what everyone thought he was and what he is proving to be in terms of leadership.
By the way, I also wanted to say, with Zelensky specifically, we can see the difference between leadership and management. Because he's a great leader, but his management is...
We'll talk about management soon. Management's probably going to be next week if
I think though, like a lot of times it's hard for someone to be a leader without being placed in a situation where they have to act as a leader.
sometimes.
But some people just, want to go with it. So.
Sometimes, not always.
Some people love being leaders, and in reality, they're just like bossy and like.
Yeah, if that's different. Okay, so I want to try and refine this definition for ourselves so that we can use a slightly broader, slightly more, I'm going to call it refined definition, okay? I'm still going to call it a process, but it's a process in which one unit influences other units to act in achieving and maximizing the effort towards a mutually shared vision, objective, or goal. This is the long version, there is a short version. By applying adaptability and different leadership tools to the situation and developmental level of the followers. Short version, it's a process in which one unit adapts and influences other units to adapt and adopt action towards a mutually shared vision, objective, or goal. I'm not going to repeat it, it's on the board. I will give you a minute to finish typing. And then we're going to talk about the difference between this and North House. Good? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Don't worry. Chloe, you good? Dan? All right. What is the fundamental? Let's look at a couple of differences. First of all, Chloe brought up the first one. She goes, wait a second, I don't like the term individual. What about if it's not an individual? It could be a group, right? So how did I refine that? Instead of saying individual, it's a unit. Can a unit be a group of any number of people? Absolutely, right? So this is unit one. Unit one is a person, or it could also be 12 people. It could be a company. It could be a triumvirate. It could be whatever grouping you want that is you consider to be unit leaders. Leaders. Then you've got another group of units. Sometimes unit 1 will be leaders 3 people, and then units on the bottom will all be individuals, seen separately. Right? You have 3 leaders who constitute unit 1, and then you've got 12 individuals all constituting different units as followers. Make sense? Sometimes you can have 1 leader, and then you can have 12 units, each one having 12 people in it as followers. For instance, in a company, you've got the CEO, and then you've got your vice presidents, and each vice president represents a whole group of people who are followers for that CEO. Does that make sense what I just said? Yeah? Or the president of the United States, or the prime minister of Israel, and he's got the Shabak, and he's got the Mossad, and he's got the military, and he's got civilian defense, and he's got the police. And each one of those is a unit that follows, made up of many, many people. And together, those units are the follower units. Okay? So we have a unit, and it somehow influences. Here as well, influence does not mean I say, this is a wonderful idea, and everyone goes, ha! That's not what we're talking about here. This is influence in terms of the entire matrix. Any possibility of persuasion, manipulation, coercion, whatever, okay? And they work towards achieving and maximizing effort towards a mutually shared vision, objective, or goal. Why do I have a vision, objective, or goal? Because I want to make sure that we're very clear about the fact that we all, could I have just said goals? Yeah, it would have been fine. But I want to make it clear for the class's purposes, we are talking about at different levels, we will see a different kind of focus in terms of leadership. Okay? Now, what's interesting here is, from my perspective, is that we are not just saying, hey, we just want to achieve this thing, but what are we trying to get these people to do? These subunits to do? These follower units? We want them to maximize their effort. We want them to not just, okay, we'll follow. It's, no, we want you to do your utmost to do this well, to do a good job, so that we are effective at getting done what we want to do. The way that the leadership does that, the leaders do that, is by applying adaptability and other leadership tools. Okay? Why adaptability? Why is it important for a leader to be adaptable?
Because circumstances change.
Just the circumstances change?
Well, I mean, everything is circumstances. It is the lead.
Fine. So the person can change, followers can change, the way they change. Okay, fine. I accept that. All right? And the tools, because some people will respond well to these tools and some units will respond well to those tools. Given the situation, circumstance, and the developmental level of the followers. Why the developmental level of the followers?
Well, because followers might improve, or they might not improve, or they might, in fact, how do we call it?
Degenerate. Right? You might find that some followers are really good at certain skills and other ones aren't, and some of them are improving and some of them aren't. And so understanding, like when you say I want your maximum effort from a 3-year-old, it's a different maximum effort than you expect from a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 21-year-old. When you say to a newbie green unit in the army that just got, conscripted, hey guys, take the hill, and then you take a group of guys who've been doing this together for a long time and go, hey guys, take the hill, you kind of expect that the maximization of effort is going to be different because of the developmental level, plus how much you have to engage with them to get them to think, right, da-da-da-da-da. Make sense? Do you see it? Do you see how this is a slightly more refined definition?
It's very, very, very more all-encompassing.
Right. It's trying to be all-encompassing. Exactly. Okay. So here's the question. Where's power in all this? This is, of course, in politics.
Well, I would say that power is a result of leadership. It derives from it.
Power derives... Okay, go ahead.
I think it flows, because if the people are not responding to the power of the leader, then the people have the power.
Okay. So you're saying it may depend on how the power is flowing. Are the people following? Because if the units, the units that are follower units aren't following, does the leader have power? And if he does have power because of some basis for power, but he's not effectively utilizing that power or he can't get people to follow anyway, what does that mean about his real power? Does that, like, a teacher who can't get their class to sit and listen, no matter what, technically they have power, don't they? What's the basis of their power?
Their official position.
Their position, right? They have a position. The position gives them power. Are they able to effectively engage that power? Not so much. Okay? So power and leadership, it's like, what is this major connection between them? Well, let's think about it for a minute. How should we consider the relationship? If we want to talk about this relationship, one of the ways we can talk about the relationship is as a power relationship, right? How is power flowing? From whom to whom? Who permits the power to flow this way? Who has control over the flow of the relationship and the power in the relationship? All right? And then we have to ask questions like, okay, well, then when we talk about influence, we're talking about manifestations of power. We're talking about how is that influence going to present here? How does wealth play a role? Remember we had norms, rules and norms and wealth and violence, right? And, okay, so where's wealth in all this? Well, if you look at a business, the ability to, I can give you a bonus. If you do what I say, you get a bonus here, $10,000, $20,000. All of a sudden you go, okay, I'm going to work harder at this because I want that bonus, right? If you're the kind of person who responds that way. But if I think you're going to respond that way and you look at me and go, I don't care about, my paycheck is enough. I want to just enjoy what I'm doing and I don't like this. This is not fun. Nothing you can pay me will make me do this faster, harder, or work more, maximize my effort on this. It's just not going to happen. Then what does wealth do you? Not very much. In terms of the manifestation of power, your power in leadership. Okay? Great example, I have a friend. She was moving up the hierarchy of a business, and they gave her a new position, which included a very nice pay raise, and she hated it. She hated the new job. She felt like she just didn't want to be doing it. And no matter how hard leadership tried to get her to maximize effort and put her best foot forward in that position, she didn't feel like she could do it. Not because she wasn't capable, she's more than capable of doing the job, but because she didn't enjoy what she was having to work at. She didn't like what she was being asked to focus on. And she eventually went to them and said, listen, I want to go back to doing this job, and I will take the subsequent pay cut. And she took a $50,000 pay cut. And she's supremely happy. And they are getting far more out of her where she is now than they were when they had her in the higher position. They're getting way more out of her. Make sense? So reward power has something to it, but it is not all and the be all and end all. Okay? All right. Last question on this one. And I'm skipping the norms one, right? Can you use force and still be a leader? Engage in leadership? Can you use coercion?
Yes, absolutely.
Give me an example.
Lukashenko is definitely a leader for his troops.
I didn't hear you.
Lukashenko.
Okay.
He's definitely a leader for his troops. They follow him very happily, and then he uses those troops to oppress everybody else.
No, that's him using his followers to engage in violence against others. That's not what I'm asking. Does he use violence against his own people to get them to follow him, and are they happy with it?
I'm not sure they're happy with it, but they all know consequences of disobeying.
Okay, so you're saying, let me put it into perspective. What you just said is, they know that there is the potential for force for this leader to get what he wants, and they are still willing to follow and maximize their effort, partially because they want to, and partially because they are afraid. Correct? So force can play a role in it. Force can play a role in leadership, a positive role even. The threat of force or violence can be a motivating factor to get people to do what you want. Is that the way you want to engage in leadership? I hope not. But you can use it that way. Okay? All right. we're going to take a quick pause, and we're going to play a game.
I love this part of class.
Can you be my hands to put something on the floor?
Can I what?
Can you be my hands?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I love interactive class.
Cool. What I would like you to do is make me a small square out of 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then add another square just right below them. Or, yeah.
Like,
No, including the blue one. So you're adding 3 more. 1, 2, 3, okay? Now I want you to put 2 more off to the side, just that way. 1 and 2.
which,
The same spot, just down 1. Yep, right there. Good job. Come join her on the floor. Come and join her on the floor.
gotta pull up my hands.
Oh, man. I would not leave my computer there. I would suggest putting that computer on a chair. Just saying. Experience, if you know what I mean. Sit. Working together without talking. Working together without talking. Hi, come join us. That was a little weird. I don't know. It's kind of strange. No, it's okay. Come have a seat. Come have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat. You can sit anywhere you feel comfortable. I'll give you room. Okay. Without talking, this is rule number 1. No words out of mouth. You have to figure out how to make 3 squares out of what you see in front of you. Okay? Now, you may not move without permission from other people on the group, which means you can't just start grabbing things and moving. You actually have to figure out a way to get people to engage with you without using any vocal communication at all. It's hard. Yeah, go ahead, start.
May I ask a question?
You may ask questions, absolutely.
When we make 3 squares, do we have to use all of them, or we can just leave one like sticking out like that?
You have to use everything that's on the board in front of you. Good question. Now think about this for a minute. I'm going to keep talking, you guys just listen. All of you right now are engaging in individual contemplation. There's no way for a team to work together if everyone is focused on the same goal, but there's no communication taking place. If you guys don't talk, what is happening? You have your brain, and 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 your brain. Do you see it? But the moment I say, okay, you are allowed to have 2 people who are going to talk, what will happen? What will happen to the group all of a sudden? I'm going to let 2 people talk. Who's talking? 2 talkers. You don't have to actually be the person in charge. You just have to talk.
I'll talk.
Okay, I got Chloe talking. One other talker. I'm going to choose Dan. Dan's talking. Dan's talking.
It's like confusing for the people on Zoom.
I don't care. They have to deal with it. There's nobody on Zoom. I'm the only participant in the whole thing. The whole thing. literally, this is getting videoed for them so that they can watch it later. And if they're not here to do this, I'm not moving the video camera.
No, I'm saying like if I was on Zoom and I was saying like.
Yeah, well, this is what happens when you don't come to class. This is not this. We love you very much. Hi. Didn't mean that we don't care about you, but this has to happen. Okay. 2 of you can talk. Only one of you can move stuff. Which one of you is going to be the mover?
A different person?
No. Actually, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Only one of you can be a mover. Only one of you can be the mover. Who's it going to be? Not one of the talkers.
I'll move.
Okay, we've got a mover. Okay. Go ahead.
Wait, does anyone have any ideas in their head?
Yes, you share. No hands. You
We're
guys
not
can share
allowed,
the
we just,
idea.
we're not allowed to move anything.
You are allowed to move things. You're the
They
only.
tell me though.
You're allowed to move things. If you have an idea, you can also say, I have an idea. You know, you can say, you're not allowed to talk though. You can go. And then you can actually move things if you want. Let's see what happens.
Anyone? Okay, do you guys want to start just moving
Hebrews
things around for
engineer
fun?
here.
Sorry, I need to sit down. Everything's just
Are you okay? Shh. Come on, Dan and Chloe. Start leading.
Why don't you start moving? Because maybe will give us a better picture if we start touching things.
Can I do this? Or?
You can point and say, you can point and try and get them to move things around. Go ahead. You can talk, Dan.
Forgot the part.
It's much harder when you can't talk, isn't it? Don't worry, you're going to get to talk in a
I'm
minute.
used to this in between Netidad Yadayim
Give-
I've been trained.
Salt.
Right.
Knife.
I'm used to this. I'm an expert. Is there an actual solution?
Yes.
Oh God, there's a reason we don't study
Yeah, we wrote-
engineering.
This is like basic geometry, people.
I don't even think I took geometry, so okay.
It's not basic. It's a mind game. All right, the floor is open for anyone to talk. Start talking.
Huh. Are we doing all right, Professor? The
No.
movie you did?
I'm not answering that
Can
question.
anyone move it or only?
Anyone can move
You
stuff
said
now.
3
Okay.
squares?
You have to make 3 squares.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but then it was like, even if you move that, like,
No, you can't move more than 2 of them.
We can't move more than 2 of them?
You can only move 2 of them.
What?
Oh, that's a new rule.
Oh, what?
Only move 2 of them.
I don't even know how it looked now.
It's okay, like that. And yeah, the green one and the green one goes on the bottom. The green one goes next to Chloe. No, the
No.
whatever the
You
yellow.
colorblind?
He might be.
I
Who knows?
am. That's why
Are
I'm
you
asking.
actually?
Yeah, I am. Okay.
2 markers will solve this?
2 markers moves will solve this.
I was in the lowest manager, so.
This was originally like this.
Yes, that's correct. That's fine. Doesn't really matter one way or the other.
But that's how bad we're doing?
yeah, this is not great, guys.
What if you move the green one to
How do you divide the big square though? This is the question. Like, fine, we can move the red there. But how do you make that 3?
I will say there's a difference between a rectangle and a square. A rectangle is not a square. So if you move the red
If
one,
you move the red,
you're
then
making
you
a
have
rectangle.
You're
and
making,
a
but then
square
you can make it into 2 squares.
with another
no?
marker that we don't have. Is there another marker? Are we allowed another marker?
It's very difficult.
for now, no.
Oh, got it.
Although that's very much thinking outside the box. I would give you here. I'll give you an example. I've played this game where I've done this. And then I set it up, and I said, you have to move 2. What did she just do?
Add more resources?
Yeah, you did. But what did you do? Did you think within the framework of what's in front of you or within the greater framework of what's on the table?
Within the greater framework of what's on the table.
Right?
We need to be innovative.
Right. So I'm saying I've played this game where I've set it up like this, and then I've had a pile of markers next to it.
Oh, I didn't get
And
what
I've
you
literally said to
said.
people, you have to move 2 markers in order to make 3 squares. At least you have to move, you can move up to 2 markers in order to make 3 squares. How many markers do you actually have to move to make 3 squares?
Can we
1.
make 2 squares?
I want 3 squares.
Well, are we allowed to use those markers?
No, but I'm saying that's one of the ways you can play this game. I'm showing you a different iteration of it. So what I'm doing is I'm denying you that iteration. Does that make sense? He's like, you're changing the main goal? What? That's not part of what we're supposed to be doing here. Although it's a leadership function to define whether or not a goal is realistic or not.
I guess
What did you
so.
say? Which
No,
one?
I said
leader.
we make 2 squares instead of 3, and then we could just
Oh.
take away some markers.
You know what
Does
you
the
have
square
done,
need to have
guys?
4 sides?
What?
You didn't ask if you can look for information.
Do what?
Record.
Look for information.
Could the squares not have 4 sides?
All squares have 4 sides. That's like the definition of a square. 4 equal sides with 90-degree corners. That's like angles. Thank you. That's the definition of a square. So yes, Jaeger's correct. One of the things you could do, and he's saying, look, hey, wait a second. What about looking online? Maybe there's an answer online, right? So I'm going to deny you that right. But once again, it's thinking outside the box and saying, wait, this is the problem in front of me. Maybe there's a way for me to get a shortcut to leadership function, right? To say, now, what happened is Jaeger's hasn't even been declared a leader, right? You're a leader because you get to talk, and you're a leader because you're talking. You got a position sort of because you're supposed to be the mover. But Jaeger's came up and said, wait a second, I have an idea. Maybe we can find another way to do this. Does that make him a leader? Maybe, right? We're not sure. We're not sure yet if he can get you guys to go along or if he can get permission for me to say yes, no.
Can we ask people in the hallway?
If you really want to, but I would not be bringing people into this classroom right now.
Can we all
Someone
move?
move another one.
Oh, no, wait,
You only have 2 moves?
2 moves.
So we already used like 10.
You can keep, the moment you reset, you start over. The moment you reset it, you're starting from fresh. You now have 2 moves.
Okay. So why don't we try 2 again?
Yeah, we could.
Like what if we made a rectangle? And then you just saw that if you're looking at the shape differently, maybe it will give you a right, like when you walk away from a puzzle. Like if you move the red one to this side, then you have a rectangle. But then you're looking at it as a different shape.
I got it, but like I need only 1 move. I know it's a rectangle.
Did you make 3 squares with it? I'd like to see what you think.
Yeah, I got it. It's actually 2 rectangles and 1 square.
Well,
The 1 move. But it's like 2 rectangles. So,
You can make 4 out of those, yeah.
oh yeah, what if you made
Yeah.
one big rectangle? What if you made one big rectangle?
And like divided it like
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
But you'd have to move it, you'd have to
3.
move more than 2 markers.
But then it's not equal sides. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Because you're cutting these sides in half.
No.
does that make them not equal sides?
Well, doesn't a square have to have equal? Oh, does it? I don't.
yeah. the
Yeah.
first
Does it make it less than equal sides?
I don't know. I didn't
What if we
pass
made
down
4
the
squares?
Stump.
I would love to see you make 4 squares out of that.
I bet we could if we had extra markers.
You probably could.
Even like this.
Yeah, that's
Wait, hold on,
rectangle.
hold on. Show it. What have you just made?
4 rectangles.
What else have you made? Jaegers, come look at this. Can you come look at this? Are you okay to look?
Yeah.
3
Look at it.
squares?
Look at it
Oh,
from
we
up the
did
top.
No, wait, what?
How many
Jaegers, what do you see there?
Well, obviously I see 3 squares.
Where are the 3 squares? Can you show it to them?
This square.
Oh,
Right.
and 1 big square?
Yeah,
No,
exactly, in the middle.
And 1 in the middle.
Yeah. 1 square,
Like what?
2
Look at it.
squares,
Okay.
3 squares. We did it.
Yeah. Did we do
You
it?
were right.
I was right, yeah.
Yay.
Okay. Look at what happens. First of all, Jaegers, because he wasn't here watching. How much easier was it for him to see it? Much easier. It's not just because he's an engineer. It's also because once he wasn't there looking at the this and the that and the this and that, the moment he was presented with a final product, he could look at it and go, wait a second, you're not seeing the big picture. You're seeing the small little things in between. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. Okay? But think about the process you just went through. How many people took on leadership roles here? Everyone did at some point, right? There wasn't one declared leader. I mean, yes, I sort of gave people positions at the beginning and then I gave another position. But at the end of the day, everybody can go back and I want my markers. At the end of the day, right, what you guys got from this was something very important. First of all, how important was communication for your ability to get this thing done? Super duper important. So if you can't communicate, how effective can you be as a leader? Not really. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is that sometimes just because you give someone a position, even if they have power in that position, reward power. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Even if you have power, right, that does not mean that you're the person who's going to come up with a good idea. See vision and be able to guide the process of getting people to ascribe to that vision, right? And sometimes what will happen is through trial and error, this person will come up and try and be a leader for a moment. and they'll engage their power. And their power will have people following for a moment or two until the people go, wait a second, no. And then sometimes it'll be, wait a second, yes, that looks good, but I think you're missing something. So who's the leader when that happens? The person who first came up with the idea and guided process, or the person who comes up afterwards and simply remarks on the fact that this is perfect, this is really good, but we're missing something? Which one of them is the leader? The first one, right? Guided the process, got us to the point where someone was able to recognize, someone on the team was able to recognize a small part of what was wrong, but not define vision and get people to work together and everything else. Did that make sense? Now, this is a very simple project on the floor. Like, this is a nothing thing. But if you think about this in grand scale, people are doing this all the time. The people in the Ukraine are doing this right now through massive maneuvers. Right? People in companies are doing this right now all the time in order to create new products, improve on their products. So leadership, right? If we had said, you're the leader and you're the leader, whether you have the traits or not, would this have gotten done the way it was? Probably not. Because the moment someone else decides to start giving their ideas over, what does that do to your leadership? Are you the leader anymore if someone else is taking control? I'm asking.
My name would be like.
Yeah, you might be in the position of I'm in charge, but in practice. In practice not, right? Okay. So power plays a very big role in this. Who is open to being influenced and what that influence would look like? Could you imagine if I'd put in a time limit on this for you guys? How would you have felt? Much more pressure, right? I'm super stressed. And if I had said, listen, if you can't figure this out by the time limit, you're all getting 5 points off on your paper. A lot more stress. All of a sudden, oh my God, wait a second. How does this impact my paper? I don't understand. Right? Or if I had said, hey, listen, I'm going to give 100 shekels to whoever figures it out.
Create a huge competition.
Which means, would you be working as a team towards a mutual vision, or would it be, I want to be the one to figure it out, and I'm not going to tell you what I'm thinking until I figured it out, right? So how we do this, how we engage power, will massively impact leadership.
You're not in control.
Well,
Of your leadership situation.
true. So what do you mean by that? Can you expand on what you mean?
Let's say you're a commander, right? In war, you're not. You only can do like the best that you can in your given situation.
Okay, hold on. I want to understand what you're saying, and we're going to go back to tactical leadership for a second. Tactical advantage. There you are. You are saying, okay, no matter how much you want to command and control, or how disciplined you are, or how much you can get people to cooperate with you, or how much you feel like you can orchestrate events, there are things that are outside your control. Right? Things that are outside of your control. The environment within which you're working. Right? How the enemy is going to respond to you. The weather. Whether or not this area has already been shelled, and therefore there's huge, holes in the ground that you have to avoid. Whether the area is under fire right now or not. The ability for you to communicate because radios don't work so well in an urban environment, right? Normal radios, they have a much more limited function in an urban environment because line of sight is radio waves work much better through line of sight, right? So this is going to negatively impact your ability to lead, your ability to engage in tactical maneuvers and act decisively, right? It's going to impact your ability to act decisively, right? And it will also impact how clearly you see opportunities.
Well, it's like when you're in fight or flight.
Fight or flight, yeah.
Right, like your brain computes things differently.
Correct. One of the things that we spoke about much earlier this semester or last semester, and I'm not going to open up that slide, when we talked about the elements of strategy, right, is that, for instance, when there's an emergency situation, okay, and you are suddenly faced with, I'm going to give the example of like your kid is about to walk into the street, and you're over there, and the kid is over here. There are 10 major elements of strategy, right? You've got inspiration, and then you've got intelligence gathering, analysis, vision, resources, doctrine, how you organize, command, chance, and operations. When you are faced with an emergency situation like that, you don't engage, you engage very specific ones. You go from inspiration, my kid's about to walk into the street, to intelligence gathering, car, to resources, run, I've got 2 legs, 2 hands, and I'm moving my body because that's the resource I've got available, right? To anything I can do to command the situation, I'm going to engage anything, yell, no, right? I'm going to do everything I can to control events, and I'm going to put into specific operations to event. There's no analysis, there's no vision, there's no organization, there's no doctrine, there's no nothing, none of those are involved in that process at all. It's literally, boom, operation. Do. It is, but companies do this all the time. Teams do this very often also, where they get hit with some inspirational event, and they don't even go into analysis. They're just like, oh, brilliant. Oh, what resources do we have to put to get that done? And let's get this thing done. And okay, here's what we're going to command.
Would they analyze at some point, even if it's not?
Maybe afterwards, like maybe as an after effect to it, perhaps. I'll give you an example. I was on vacation, and my family was supposed to join me, and we had asked for adjoining rooms for our children, and I went to the front desk, and I was like, hi, I want to make sure that there's adjoining rooms the day I got there, and my family was joining me 4 days later. Yeah, no problem, we have it listed. No. Day that they're supposed to arrive, hi, I'm just making sure they're going to be here in about a few hours, adjoining rooms. They're like, oh, we put them 2 floors above you. And I went berserk on them. I'm going to readily admit it. No, that's not okay. You have to resolve this. You have to resolve this. You have to resolve this. And they weren't even listening to that information at the beginning. Like they weren't, their intelligence gathering system wasn't even analyzing what I was saying. It was simply going, nope, this is what it is. And then it was, well, we can sort of maybe do this. I'm like, I have a 3-year-old. Really? You're not listening. You're not actually gathering, you're not engaging the intelligence that I'm telling you.
Was this in Israel?
Of course. And then I went to someone else higher up in the hierarchy and I said, you have a fundamental problem. Solve it now. And she went, okay. And she immediately, there was very little analysis. There was very little doctrine involved. It was very much problem. What resources can I use to resolve it? Who do I have to control to get this done? Put that into operation. And she did it on the phone right away. She picked up the phone. She's like, hi, I want you to talk to this person who's in that room. They just came in today. Let them know there's been a mistake. We're going to move them up to a different level room so that we can have the adjacent room because it's next to the handicap room. You don't want to do it? Give me your manager. Spoke to his manager and said, you need to do this. And within like 20 minutes, it was resolved. Was there a lot of analysis that went into this for her? This higher up? Not really. Why? Because she doesn't want to deal with a disgruntled customer. She doesn't want to have to deal with this long term. She wants to resolve the issue now. Is it the same thing as your kid walking out into the street? No. But is it a similar thing for the organization? Sort of. Do you understand that? Do you see it? On the other hand, if you don't see it as an immediate issue, oh, your kids are coming in 3 or 4 days? No problem. We'll talk to them. We'll get it all figured out. We may move you. We may move them. Let us figure this out. And then all of a sudden, they'll do some analysis. They'll figure it out. They'll do this. But they had like 3 hours. 3 hours, get the people on the phone, make sure that they're willing to do this, get them moved, get the rooms clean, get us moved. Right? Different way of dealing with it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we think about this, right, when we think about leadership, no, I don't want managers. When we think about leadership, and we think about power in leadership, or more importantly, when we think about the relationship that we're talking about, right? What we have to recognize is that we are going to focus on the process. I'm going to demand of you that you talk in that terminology. Will we talk about traits? Yes. Will we talk about skills? Absolutely. But we will talk about how they influence process, not as a thing unto themselves that makes somebody a leader. Does that make sense? Great. See you all next week.